what was said during Carney's call with Trump. It's from CBC News, so might be a little bit biased, but yeah, let's see what our Prime Minister, liberal Prime Minister, was talking about with President Trump. Before I play it, I don't know if you heard, President Trump seems to be pretty happy about Prime Minister Carney. And the question is he happy because it's going to be easier for him to deal with liberal leadership? Or is he really happy because he gets some shit done, like some good agreement? Since President Trump is businessman, I think it's the first thing. I think he can play them better than he would be able to play conservatives, and he knows that. But yeah, let's see the video.
Balancing his job as prime minister while trying to convince Canadians to vote Liberal. This morning in Montreal, Carney spoke to President Donald Trump by phone for the first time, then held a virtual meeting with...
What do you mean for the first time? How long he has been prime minister? Like, it wasn't his top priority to deal with this shit? Like, seriously? It's been going on. I think he's prime minister for at least 2 weeks now, and this is the first time he's talking to President Trump. And that's someone who deserves the vote of Canadians. Like, look, I said it before. Right now, tariffs did not really affect the normal Canadians. Like, we don't feel it yet. But you want to deal with it as soon as you can, right? He's been in power or in the office for 2 weeks, and that's the first time he speaks to President Trump? Like, do you really want to vote someone who's gonna take his fucking time to deal with something they base the elections on? That's the ridiculous thing. Like, you hear liberals talking about, oh, President Trump bad, and it takes him 2 weeks to deal with this?
Premiers to get them up to speed before updating media from the Port of Montreal.
Over the coming weeks, months, and years, we must fundamentally reimagine our economy. We must ensure that Canada can succeed in a drastically different world.
Carney says he would invest $5 billion to diversify trade and become less reliant on the United States. He also says his conversation with President Donald Trump today was constructive and productive, but that doesn't mean an end to tariffs. The CBC's Ashley...
So again, we're gonna depend on trade, which is not a bad thing. Obviously, you need a trade. But we have everything in Canada. You have coal, you have gas, you have fishing, you have so many resources, lumber, and you don't want to utilize it. And it's crazy to me. Like, I was looking into it yesterday. So the population of Canada is pretty much the population of California. Like, it's pretty much same. There's like just 2 million people difference, right? But look at the size of Canada and size of California. Canada's like, I don't know, 20 times bigger, 30 times bigger. So, like, living in Toronto and stuff, sorry, I don't know why I keep doing this pen thing. Like, living in Toronto, you get kind of depressed how the nature's disappearing because they keep building more and more and more, right? But if you realize that it's 30 times bigger than California, we have so many resources that we can use without severely damaging the environment. Like, obviously, you're going to have to cut some forests and everything. It's not ideal. You don't want to, like, I'm not in favor of cutting forests, but look, in Alberta, you have so many prairies. So much land without forest that it's just waiting for people to be used. It's not all the farms, it's just prairies. So, like, there is definitely a huge potential to use. Like, you can not mine, what's the word? Not frack. Well, you can build more oil fields, right? In Alberta. Like coal mines, they're using so many of them in BC, like they're mining the mountains. It's kind of sad, but yeah, like we do have resources, and it's hard to hear that liberals again want to depend on someone else and on the trade. And like now the prime minister saying, oh, we need to change it. Liberals were in power for almost 10 years now. Why do we need to change it now? Like, we should have built this infrastructure during those 10 years when the liberals were in the power. Like, did we just waste money? Waste taxpayers' money these 10 years? Because it looks like it. It looks like the situation in Canada got worse. Instead of it progressing, it just downgraded. So what the hell?
Burke is traveling with the Liberal leader. Ashley.
David, Liberal leader Mark Carney just described his call with Donald Trump, saying it was constructive, cordial, and substantive, and said that they agreed to negotiate a new economic and security relationship right after the election. Carney is campaigning for a majority government, saying he wants to lead those discussions, but he also said that on that call, he didn't get any indication from Trump that he would back down on his tariffs on the auto sector, steel or aluminum, and said that Canada will retaliate after Trump announces his next move in this trade war on April 2nd.
Why would he back up because of one conversation? And see, that's my issue, why the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney waited 2 weeks to talk to him. So you're literally gonna talk to him after he starts with the tariffs? Like, why? If you talked to him 2 weeks ago, you could have had the deal right now. But no, you're gonna wait 2 freaking weeks to deal with something so important. It's okay if you're a normal person, right? Like, so many times you push something away when you're supposed to deal with it right now. But if you're prime minister and you're representing the whole country, you can't do this. You cost so many people money with this behavior. And obviously they're using it in their advantage to go for the elections, right? Like, it can be more obvious that it's all just about the elections. But man, and again, like, liberals were in power, they could have dealt with him, they could have negotiated the new trade since January. Like, what the hell happened? And I know you're gonna blame Trudeau, and yeah, of course you can blame him, but it's not just Trudeau. Like, he's representing Liberal Party, and now it's Mark Carney, but the party is still same, it's still Liberals. So it's their incompetence that we're in the situation we're at right now. And yeah, like, why would President Trump back down from tariffs? Like, nothing changed. The same parties in power. The guy waited 2 weeks to call him, and what, like, he's gonna promise him it's gonna be better, and businessman and like President Trump should just believe his word. In politics, you're gonna believe someone's word? You can't, man.
Now, Carney had said that he wouldn't talk to Trump unless he respects Canada's sovereignty. When I asked him about that today, he said that Trump did do that. He did respect Canada's sovereignty in both his public and his private comments. And we really saw a change in tone from Trump today. He described the conversation himself as very good. Trump also didn't call Carney the governor. He didn't mention his repeated threat about Canada becoming the 51st state. I asked Carney if he trusts that, and he said that there's always a strategy and a negotiation when he.
There you go, strategy and negotiation. Like, President Trump mentioned that he likes, or probably not likes, but like something in that sense, that he likes dealing with Mark Carney, and that he can see striking new deals, right? But if you think about it, he knows it's going to affect the elections. And is it easier for him to deal with liberals or conservatives? And if you saw my previous video about Pierre Poilievre's message to President Trump, he's not going to back down. Pierre Poilievre knows we have all the resources we need and that we need to work to being self-reliant in the future, so we don't depend only on the trade. Like if trade goes down, Canada's still going to be okay, the Canadian people, right? That's what conservatives want. So they're not going to strike some bad deal. And I feel like it's going to be easier for President Trump to deal with liberals rather than conservatives. So it's all politics, man. Like, do you want to deal with someone who's strong or with someone who's going to be easygoing? That's why President Trump wants liberals to win, or why he says that. Obviously, he would rather have a strong allies, but if it's about dealing with some contracts, the liberals would be a better choice for President Trump.
He answered that question. Now, on the campaign trail, he also announced a $5 billion fund that he's proposing to help diversify trade and to work with ports like the one I'm at right now to help them compete, cooperate with one another rather than compete. Carney is now on his way back to Ottawa. David?
All right, thank you, Ashley. That's the CBC's Ashley Burke.
One more thing. I said don't trust politicians, don't trust their word, right? Obviously, you can use it against me because I like Pierre Poilievre and I like his message. You can say, well, if you trust this politician, I'm not Canadian citizen yet. But if I was about to vote, I'm gonna vote for hope. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen if conservatives will win, if they will follow on everything they promised. But we have that hope that they will. What do we have with liberals? Are you hoping that everything's going to remain the same as last 10 years? Are you hoping to lose your house? Are you hoping to live paycheck to paycheck? Not even paycheck to paycheck, like another 5 years or 4 years and you're gonna live under a bridge, man, if you're not one of the top earners. Like
in Montreal. Well, the other party leaders were asked today about this positive call between Liberal leader Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump. Have a listen.
Well, let's hope that there is a change in tone. We want to put an end to this crazy tariff chaos. We have the best trading relationship in the history of the world. Why not continue and grow that trading relationship as two separate sovereign nations?
There are many things I'm going to attack Mark Carney on when it comes to domestic policy, but when it comes to our fight against Donald Trump, we all need to be united in fighting back against Donald Trump and protecting our country and protecting jobs.
What I read in Mr. Carney's declaration is a problem. He committed Canada to something that would happen only after the election,
yep,
pretending
smart guy
in a gross manner that he would still be the prime minister.
Okay,
That was a good point, man. Yeah, vote for me, I'm gonna deal with it. I mean, everyone's kind of basing election on it, right? But yeah, that didn't even cross my mind. And again, just the timing of it, that Mark Carney was waiting 2 weeks to start dealing with it. I don't even think 2 weeks ago we knew that the election's going to happen on April 28th, right? It's just politics, man. It's disgusting. And that's why I like the Pierre Poilievre message. Not over here, like he was right over here, but the other video where he says that, yeah, we need to utilize our resources to be less dependent on other countries. And it's true, like Canada's a rich country, like naturally rich. Why not use it?
Let's begin there with our Friday Party Insiders. Greg McEachern is a former Liberal ministerial advisor. Fred Delory is a former Conservative campaign manager. And Melanie Richer is a former communications director for the NDP. Good to see you all, gang. It's the end of the first week. Greg, this feels like a significant day today. Mark Carney speaking to Donald Trump, setting up a negotiation for when this election is over and being called Prime Minister and Mark by the President. What do you make of this?
Market change in tone, and I think, I'm trying to decide whether the relief I feel is as a Canadian or as a partisan Liberal, but who...
Sorry, but it's really ridiculous. Like I said, Prime Minister should do what's best for the country. And to be fair, I don't think President Trump cares if he's going to strike the deal now or after election, especially if he wants to strike the deal with Liberals, right? You have almost a month till election. So we're going to wait a month with tariffs and everything before they deal with it? It's just like that's not in good faith. Like, he's lobbying for elections. And I hope people will realize it, that he's pretty much putting an ultimatum on people like, yes, I will deal with it after elections. So you need to vote for me. Like, he can strike the deal now. President Trump wants to deal with him, wants to deal with Liberals. He better do it now before we vote for Conservatives, right? But somehow, apparently, he wants to strike the deal after election, which doesn't make sense. There's no common sense in it.
Who cares? Don't swear. There was an amount of respect there from the president, which you take with a grain of salt, and you wonder how long, why do we accept this? But as we've sat here for a lot of Fridays through breaking news the last couple of months, I'll take it. Perhaps the president is not immune to reading polls as well. And maybe this is about ensuring that whatever happens after the election, we know that we've got Danielle Smith and others working really hard with people that are very close to Trump. But perhaps the president is saying, well, just in case, we've got a long ways to go before the election's over, but just in case, I better, try to preserve this relationship, or try to appear that I'm trying to preserve this relationship before we get too far.
I just want, if I can, to the control room, let's just play this longer Trump clip from earlier today, because it's been a while since the president spoke, and it's important to hear the whole context. So here's Donald Trump speaking earlier.
Here we go. That's going to be interesting.
Mark called me today at 10 o'clock. We put out a statement. We had a very, very good talk.
Mark called me today at 10 o'clock. He didn't say we had a meeting or anything. Maybe I'm just trying to linger on the words, but to me that really sounds like he had an option to call him earlier. Like, Mark Carney called him today, after 2 weeks in the office, after a couple of days after we had tariffs on the automobile industry, right? Why? Why are you waiting so long? You're basing your election on fighting against Donald Trump, and yet you wait 2 weeks to deal with this.
He's going through an election now, and we'll see what happens. But we have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades, And, that has to stop. We're going to end up with a very good relationship with Canada and a lot of the other countries. But we had a very good talk, the Prime Minister and myself, and I think things are going to work out very well between Canada and the United States.
Now, look, Fred, it's possible that could have changed while we were playing.
I believe that they had a good talk. They're both businessmen. Mark Carney has close ties to U.S., his company or whatever. He moved his headquarters from Toronto to New York, right? So I bet they had a good talk.
The clip, right? But that's what we have at the moment.
Unfortunately, not productive for Canadians.
I'm not referring to Canada. I'm talking about people ripping us off, calling the Prime Minister Mark. Very good talk. I mean, What do you make of it all?
It's weird. I don't know what that is. It's fair. Like an actual normal adult wrote his statement and the tweet that he put out after the call with Carney. It was weird. I don't understand. I'd like to know what that conversation was like. How did he get there? Why did he get there? What is he trying to do with this? I don't know.
Mel, what are your thoughts? I mean, he intruded into this election pretty aggressively with the auto tariffs, and there's been movement ever since leading to today. Where do you think things stand at this moment?
Yeah, it's kind of wild that we're talking about this super reasonable, rational comment as breaking news because it has been so over the place with the president. And I think I said earlier that I feel like I have whiplash because I just never know what he's going to say next. I think it's a good thing. I think folks who are paying attention to the election, who are tuning in at home, it's a little bit relieving that he's not continuing to call us the 51st state. Does that last? Hard to say. I agree.
Can we stop with this 51st state? Like, obvious. Come on, guys. President Trump is just a showman and businessman. He knows how to work media. Like, the 51st state was just a joke. It was just trash talk. Like, why are we lingering on it so much? Like, that's ridiculous. And, like, the way some of the media are portraying President Trump, like, seriously, you're talking about how surprised you are that they had adult conversation? Like, come on. President Trump's doing just what's best for US, and that's his responsibility. He doesn't have to do what's best for Canada. He wants to strike the new trade deal with Canada. He feels like Canada and other countries were taking advantage of the US, and that's why he's dealing the way he's dealing with Canada right now. Like, yeah, and he puts a little bit of showmanship into that. That's another thing. But, like, seriously, you're gonna pretend like, oh, he's some crazy person and now he's behaving normal? Like, let's just talk about Mark Carney and his relationship with Epstein and how he moved the headquarters from Toronto to New York when he found out President Trump's gonna be elected. Like, come on, you can't throw dirt only on President Trump and think that Mark Carney is saint or something like that. Like, obviously they had a good discussion. Obviously President Trump would rather deal with liberals and Mark Carney than conservatives. And again, they're both businessmen. They understand business. I bet it was good conversation. But no one mentioned that it was productive for Canadians, and it wasn't. Because they're not gonna do any deal until election. They're gonna wait 30 days. And why? 99% chance is that it's because of Mark Carney. Because again, President Trump wouldn't care if he signs the deal now or in 30 days. And obviously, if he wants to deal with the liberals, it would be safer for him to sign the deal now. Like, really, you don't see it that Mark Carney is not acting in the best interest of Canadian citizens? Like, he's not representing the Canadian citizens?
Would have loved to be a fly on the wall to listen to that conversation, to hear what was said, for this change in tone, if it had to do with the call or if it had to do with other circumstances. To your point, the polls look really different, so maybe you have to take a different approach. Hopefully it lasts. And then,
to be fair, for this, President Trump did not respect Justin Trudeau. Can you blame him? President Trump saw what happened with Canada in those 9 years while Trudeau was in power. There was no reason to respect Trudeau. Mark Carney has some resume. Obviously, President Trump's going to have more respect to him. Obviously, he doesn't have as much experience with Mark Carney, so he's going to deal with him politely. Like, he's normal human being, right? He's businessman. He has a good behavior, even though you're trying to portray him as this crazy person. He is still polite person. So obviously he's going to treat people with respect until they try to screw him over.
We can pick this up at the end of the election. Of course, if that happens, this election takes a bit of a turn and becomes maybe a bit of a different ballot box question. But yeah, fascinating turn in events with President Trump today.
You know, it's remarkable. I was texting Liberals today to say, you know, how do you think it went with the president? You know, with the call, and they said it's positive, but who knows, right? And I think that's the thing. But, you know, Fred, in terms of like sort of cementing the ballot question.
Another thing is, like, when you're trying to strike a deal, you're trying to do it as fast as possible before someone changes their minds, right? Like, you're trying to iron it out and sign it really as soon as possible. You're not going to wait 28 days until the situation will completely change, right? It doesn't make sense. Explain it to me how Canadian Prime Minister will let people and just the automobile industry of Canada and everything the tariffs will affect, how he's going to willingly let Canadians suffer for 30 days until he gets reelected, and then he's going to strike the deal. Like, why would you vote for someone like this? He is in the office right now. He's supposed to deal with it right now. There shouldn't be any, if you vote for me. No, you have the job right now for at least 30 more days. So do your job. If you do your job good, we can give you another chance. But if you're going to just wait, why would you vote for them?
Question of it being about Trump, it seems like a good 2 to 3 days for Mark Carney. I mean, how do you view it in terms of, you know, from the chair of a former campaign director?
Right. Well, right now, it is the ballot question, and Carney is the only one actually talking about it. Poilievre, his messaging has been, he's done other different announcements over the last week, including today he did one on crime, I believe it was, and yesterday was on tax-free saving account, not ballot question announcements. And the clip we just saw of Poilievre, he was answering a question from the media on it. He wasn't talking about it proactively. This is the ballot question. This is the story we're talking about that Canadians are seized by, and he's not on the field. And Jagmeet Singh also basically saying he's got some domestic policies. He also just completely ceded to Carney, saying, yeah, I'll be united on what Carney wants to do internationally. He ceded the field and he wasn't talking about it proactively. This is the ballot question. This is the story we're talking about that Canadians are seized by, and he's not on the field. And Jagmeet Singh also basically saying he's got some
former Conservative campaign manager. So let me put it this way. Let me say it for 10,000 times. President Trump and his tariffs is just the tip of the iceberg, and Pierre Poilievre knows it. The main issue is what happened to Canada in the last 5 years, last 10 years. Like, if everything was okay before President Trump got elected, and then we got hit with these tariffs, you would be like, okay, maybe I'll go on one vacation a year. Or, okay, maybe I'll gonna have to tighten my belt a little bit. But no, because of the situation we're in, before even President Trump got in power, so many people lived paycheck to paycheck. So many people had the existential crisis, didn't know if they're going to lose the house. You even heard about the people who had to choose between gas and food. And you're going to tell me that Pierre Poilievre is not talking about the Trump, so that's why we should not vote about him, or that he's making a mistake, while Pierre Poilievre is talking about how to get out of the real problem, which is the situation in Canada if you don't look at the tariffs, right? Like taxes, everything. Like, tell me that the life was ideal in 2024, that you had such a good life, that you worked hard and You could afford everything you want. You didn't have to stress about the bills. You didn't have to stress about housing and everything. That if you really wanted something extra, you just took overtime and it was okay. No, that's not true. You took overtime to pay the bills. And now you're going to blame President Trump that it got worse? Again, like if the situation was good before President Trump, these tariffs, yes, you would feel them, but it wouldn't really threaten you as much as they do right now. So what Pierre Poilievre is talking about is good for the future of Canada. Start using the resources of Canada, lower the taxes, just restart the economy, and yeah, if President Trump won't get rid of the tariffs, we're gonna be okay. It's gonna be a hard year, let's say, but after that, we're gonna be in the position where we're independent or where we don't depend on the US, right? Pretty much independent of US, sorry. But yeah, that's what Pierre Poilievre is talking about, because why would he talk about some trade wars? Like that's not the main issue, even though media are trying to pretend that's the biggest issue. Even the liberals are basing their election on the trade wars. And again, yet somehow Mark Carney waits 2 weeks to talk to President Trump and then waits a whole month to actually strike the New Deal. And that's only if he gets reelected. The guy is not doing his job. He just got the job 2 weeks ago and he's already lacking. Like he's already, okay, I'm gonna do this a month later, whatever, let my people suffer. That's ridiculous. Like, why would you vote for that?
Domestic policies, he also just completely ceded to Carney, saying, yeah, we'll be united on what Carney wants to do internationally. That to me was a real, there's a battlefield right now. It's Trump. That's the ballot question. That's the field that this campaign is being fought on. Carney's the only one on it right now, and that's a big problem for the other political parties.
So Greg, Fred always, you might have heard him once or twice talk about narrative on this panel. If this is a Trump ballot question, Carney, Wednesday night, I noticed when he went to his rally in Kitchener, one of the most trade vulnerable cities in Canada, and also an area where the Conservatives are looking to gain, I think it's safe to say, right? Mm-hmm. He mentioned a majority government in that speech for the first time. And then you see him dealing with Trump over the course of the week. This argument today, I spoke to the president. He respected sovereignty. We're going to meet. Trump saying things like, I'm not crapping on Canada today. So is this the beginning of the narrative for not just a win, but a majority here? Because the polling would suggest it's in play. And if he can knock it down with more proof points, where does it go?
Yeah, and no one, it's a big mistake to start, measuring the drapes before you've actually won the office. But in my memory, I kind of have two different points of view about asking for a majority or assuming one. One was near the end of the 2004 election. MP Randy White, the Conservatives were doing quite well. Stephen Harper started talking about winning, and then Randy White talked about the Supreme Court, to hell with the Supreme Court on things like same-sex marriage. And I remember dealing with a reporter at the time, and listen, folks, don't write me, I know what lemmings do, but I said, don't get in the way of a lemming that's going to jump off a cliff. Mm-hmm. And then I remember 5 years previous, John Hammond, Nova Scotia, working with Bernard Lord was the premier in New Brunswick, and it might have been Pat Binns and PEI. I apologize if I get that wrong, but he met with the other two premiers, and he asked Nova Scotians for a majority, and in order to work, collaborative, and it worked in that case. So it is something that you have to be very, very careful with. I would prefer Canadians to be telling the Liberals that they want majority, if that's the way, and I'm also very cognizant that we have had, more minority parliaments than majority. Sure. Since 2000, and maybe that's the representation. But this is a very, very different time. I did find this week, I think the Liberals had an excellent week.
Sure, let's give the Liberals ultimate power for next term. Like 3 terms were not enough. Let's give them another one, and this time let them do 100% what they want to do. Like seriously, and How can you look at this phone call as a success? He didn't strike any deal. He literally said he's going to wait until the election. He's going to let Canada suffer for 30 days. And then if he gets reelected, he's going to deal with it. Like, again, you have job right now. Do your fucking job. Represent people. Like, how can you vote for him? That's just another promise. And the difference between Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney right now is that Mark Carney is in the office. He has the power to strike the deal right now. But no, he's going to promise you that he's going to do it in a month, while the tariffs are already active for a month, pretty much. Like, why? Like, in this case, you have to look at the actions. Like, you have a prime minister who's in the office right now. What is he doing? Just promising that it's going to get better in a month, that he's going to deal with it in a month. And then you have a candidate for prime minister who's not in the office, and he's telling you what he's planning to do. Because he cannot do anything right now, so you can't really look at his actions right now. But you can look at the Liberals' actions. You can look in the past, what they did in the last 10 years. Is that what you want?
Week. But there were times where I looked at all the campaigns and I thought, are you really reflecting what I'm hearing when I get out of Ottawa about what people are actually thinking about? And there were times that I wonder that there's things that you have to do. There's regional reasons why you say things. I have to say, I look at the Conservative campaign, it reminds me of like an HBO show where at the bottom it would say 6 months previous. Because what they're talking about would have been really good in a September-October election. But right now, it's just kind of a head scratcher.
Well, look, we're going to do a deep dive. We've got time.
No, right now, it's not a head scratcher. It just proves my point that the tariffs are just tip of the iceberg. If we had what the Conservatives are planning to do before President Trump got into the office, we wouldn't be that affected by tariffs. And I'm not talking about economy of Canada, obviously, that would be affected. But I'm talking about normal people. Like right now, you went from the shitty situation to even worse. And why? Because of the Liberals. You shouldn't have been in the shitty situation to start with, right? You should have been, I'm doing good. Oh, tariffs. Okay, I'm doing a little bit worse. But no, you went from, oh shit, I'm barely keeping up with my bills to, oh, what am I gonna do?
Right, I can tell you that. I do want to talk pretty heavily about the Conservatives in just a little bit on the show, because there's some things happening there that, Fred, I want you to decode for me. But Mel, I wonder, like the Trump factor, just to keep it on this, and what it has done to the election here. This was an election that was going to be mostly about Trump. Yep. It's now almost totally about Trump, and with the auto tariffs, and now today. I mean, what does this do going into April 2nd next week, and then setting the stage for the days after that?
It's kind of hard to say, or kind of hard to see how it changes from what it's looking like right now, based off of, like Fred mentioned, what the other political parties are doing, but also based on what the Liberals are doing. I agree. I think the Liberals had a good week. I don't know that if the opposition parties were giving them a bigger run for it, it would have maybe looked a little bit different. There were some mistakes that you can't make, and I think if we were in a different circumstance, it would be a little bit different. In the context of Trump, I agree with you that it's obviously hard for the opposition parties to weigh into that conversation. But I do think that there's room in the conversation. I think of, what Jagmeet was saying about the tariffs on auto and what his plan was for auto workers and meeting with auto workers. I think the way that polls look, there is a big responsibility for folks that are going to be keeping, not the balance of power, but folks who are going to be making sure that Liberals do what they should be doing if they do end up being government. And I think that, I don't think that that's the pitch that Jagmeet is making, but I think that that is a pitch that Jagmeet would.
Oh my God, I'm going to repeat myself again. Like, you're saying if they will do what they should be doing it right now, and they're not. Why would you elect them again? Like, And again, I don't understand liberals. Like, you have this amazing chance thanks to President Trump. You have a month to deal with as much as you can to make Canada better. And if you do that, you get more people to vote for you. But no, you're just gonna tell us if I get elected or re-elected, I'll do this and this and this. So just do it now. And like, even if you don't win the election, like, you're in the office, you get elected as a party to represent the Canadian people. So you have responsibility to Canadian people. Even if you don't get re-elected, like, you can still do some good. No, I know I sound naive, but people need to realize this. That you gave your trust into these people and they're not doing their job. And they can. They don't need to wait a month to do something. And yeah, you can mention the carbon tax. Okay, he got rid of carbon tax again from April 1st. So for 2 weeks we were paying a tax that there was no reason for, because we knew it's gonna disappear. Like, that's another kind of bullshit to me. But anyway, that's let's not talk about that. But the carbon tax, he still left it for the industrial sector. So we're not, like, we could have been in the better situation. And we're not, because they decided, okay, we're gonna give a little bit of money back to people. Well, not even give, like, we're not gonna take this money from them, but we're still gonna take a little bit. Because if they got rid of carbon tax completely, the groceries would be cheaper. The other products would be, or other goods would be cheaper, right? Like, we would save more money. But no, they decided that we can save only a little bit of money, or a portion, not all, just a portion, because they still want something. And anyway, where is this carbon tax money going anyway? Like, is it going towards environment? Like, are you building something to help improve environment? Because I didn't see them planting any trees, forests, or anything in the prairies in Alberta. I didn't see that. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of land that they can use, but didn't do anything. I didn't hear about any research about environment. So where's the money going? Definitely not to improve Canadians' life.
Would do well eventually. So I think that those are also things to pay attention to, which may be why, you know, you're not really hearing them go against Mark Carney too much. And I think that that's also a good thing. I don't think people at home watching want us to be having those big fights about how we treat Trump or how we go up against Trump, because folks are rightly scared. So I think there is some appetite for a little bit of, I don't know, collaboration there.
Okay, can we actually just show the polling top line numbers right now, just the latest on our poll tracker? Like we update this. I think Eric does the big update on Monday, but his polls come in again and again and again. Just
okay, look at this. Carney told President Trump Canada will respond to April 2nd U.S. action with retaliatory tariffs. Do you remember how President Trump said that if someone starts with retaliatory tariffs, they're just gonna double it? And now, look, if that happens, if that happens, we have a 50% tariffs on Canadian goods till end of the April. Only because Mark Carney doesn't want to strike the deal before election. Because Mark Carney doesn't want to do his job right now. He wants to make sure he's gonna keep his job first. No matter if Canadians suffer, just completely doesn't give a fuck about Canadians. He just needs their vote, and then he's gonna strike the deal. And I don't know, guys, newsflash, whoever's gonna win is gonna deal with this situation. So pretty much liberals don't do anything right now again. They're just saying they will deal with it. But everyone, even if, I don't know, People's Party would win somehow, they would deal with the tariffs. Because they have to, right? That's something you don't even need to talk about. Like, it's obvious. You need to deal with it. You need to find out the way that Canada will survive. So why should you believe some promise from Liberal Party when they're the only one who can actually give us some action right now? Like, who can actually deal with it right now? But they don't. They don't deal with it right now.
Let's look at where we are. This is an aggregate of polls. The older the poll, the less weighting it gets in these numbers. But you can see right there, this looks like a Liberal majority government at 41%, but the Conservatives at 37.5%. If they were to lose, they would lose with the largest vote share of any loser in a national election since, like, I think pre-World War II, maybe around World War I, going back to like the 1920s. So it's really, and Mel, I'm not taking a shot here, a lot of New Democrat voters have gone to them, a lot of Bloc voters have gone to them in Quebec, and Fred, the galvanizing effect is this Trump factor, and the confidence in Carney to deal with it, seemingly the 1-2 punch of those things, and that seems to be the early trend and the coalescing of things, though how solid it is, we don't know at this stage of the election.
That's what's interesting. We're, the polls show, the aggregator here, we're 3 points back. That's not that far back with 4 weeks to go. Lots can happen.
Yep.
And the crowds that Poilievre is bringing out are massive. I've never seen crowds that big in all of my time campaigning. I couldn't imagine.
That's what I thought. So CBC News is known for liberal bias. So that's why I pretty much don't agree with a lot of stuff they say.
The work it goes into bringing crowds out that big.
But with 38%, you're going to be able to get crowds like that in big population areas, right? Like, how should we view those two things?
Well, I think it's more of he's getting the crowds because there is enthusiastic support for him. There is very strong.
Absolutely.
Harper was the last time when he got his majority government in 2011. He got 39% of the vote. He won government 2 other times, not that high. So there is enthusiasm here for Poilievre and the Conservatives. His message resonates with a lot of Canadians, and that's what's going to. We're looking at these polls. It's a 3-point spread. Who goes and shows up at the ballot box, and
and how efficient is it?
How efficient? That's true. We have the western provinces are obviously weighted with Conservative support. But also these Canadians who are supporting Poilievre, a lot of them have never been that engaged in politics before, haven't voted before. Are we going to be able to get them out? Based on the crowds and based on the money raised, I think we will. And it's whether, will the Liberal support drop? Will they be as enthused? I do think Trump is the question and Poilievre.
I don't want to sound naive, but I don't think you can believe the poll because I don't think like conservatives would participate too much in the polls, but at the same time I think they will show up for election because everyone knows how it is in this country right now. Everyone knows the situation. Everyone knows it to be better. So I really have a high hope for people to show up for election. I hope that they're going to do their research and vote with logic, not about, blue and red. I'm voting my whole life for red. I'm gonna vote for Liberals again. No, this is the election where you need to use your brain, do your research, and vote for change.
It needs to be talking about him.
Right, yeah, it's like it's a air war versus ground war sort of thing, because the Conservatives seem to be counting quite heavily on the organization they have, bringing out the crowds and deliver that in the vote, whereas the Liberals are playing to the national mood, right? And we'll see what the organization.
Here we go, very biased video from, what's it? Sorry, CBC News? Yeah, very biased video from CBC News.